Right. Hello and welcome everybody to the Parsha class. Today we're studying Parsha Chayei Sara 5784. Today's class was sponsored by Ruby Wilkes in memory of her mother-in-law, Esther Gittel Bat Yitzchak, and Shema should have an Aliyah, and her schut should be for us, and the learning of Torah should be for us and for her only a blessing and good things. So with that said, let's now get right into the Parsha. Parsha Chayei Sara begins with the passing of Sara, and although it will have the passing of some other great and famous people, it's still called Chayei Sara to emphasize that we focus on life, not on death. So we have her passing, and Avraham endeavors to find a fitting resting place for her in Marat HaMachpelah, and eventually he buys it, and there's a whole process that the Torah talks about in great detail. We will not be speaking too much about that today, although it's worth mentioning that it's an important mitzvah, burial and kavura, and rabbis often get questions like, "What's the Jewish perspective on cremation, chas v'shalom, and the other kinds of things like that?" It's important to know we have mitzvot, we have a process, we have customs and laws regarding burial, and it could be sometimes expensive or difficult, and in those sorts of situations, someone should see their rabbi, and hopefully we can find ways to make it more convenient for people. But it is nevertheless an important mitzvah, and
Yes, I know.
it is an important mitzvah. And with that said, this is a good week to remember some of the mitzvot that we have regarding burial. If you need a real quick class on that, I do have a series called Jewish Life Cycles, and towards the end there's some of our customs and rules regarding burial. Okay, free plug. That said, Avraham buried his wife, and now it's time to find a wife for his son, for Yitzchak. He gets his son, he gets his servant Eliezer to go and back to his homeland, to Avraham's homeland, to find a fitting wife for his son. And Eliezer comes up with a whole test. We'll go into some detail about some of that, and eventually he finds a girl. Not even eventually, but almost immediately, Rivka. Excuse me. And he miraculously finds this girl, and it turns out that she's a relative of Avraham's, a daughter of Betuel, was a relative of his, and therefore it's perfect. And the shidduch is set up, and the next day, after a few back and forth discussions, Eliezer takes Rivka back to Avraham's home, where Yitzchak finds her and marries her and loves her, and Baruch Hashem. The end of the parsha talks about the death of Avraham and also the death of Yishmael, all important and famous people, and their descendants are still mentioned in the news almost every day. So, excuse me. All right. So, without any further ado, let's get right into the verses themselves. Okay, here we go. We're going to start with the first verse. First verse in this week's Parsha has quite a bit of commentary on it. It's because it's an unusually phrased verse. And we've spoken about this before in previous years. And it's important to start off, at least with Rashi, to have like a baseline from which to start off on. And then we'll discuss other reasons, other interpretations of what's going on here. It says, "Vayu Chayei Sara 100 shana v20 shana v7 shanim shnei Chayei Sara," and literally the years of Sarah's life were 100 years, and 20 years, and 7 years. And then it says, "Shnei Chayei Sara." Those are the years of Sarah's life. And there's another interpretation that I have on the video this week that you can check out. Again, another free plug. But if the classic interpretation is, according to Rashi, it says that L'chach nichtav shana b'chol klal v'klal. It says the year for each category, for the 100 years and the 20 years and the 7 years. Meaning, lomar l'cha shekol echa nidrash la'atzma. Each one can be learned out. Each one teaches an individual thing. So Bat Kuf, when she was 100 years old, Kivat Chaf Lechet. She was like a 20-year-old in terms of sin. In other words, a 20-year-old, up to 20 years old anyway. We believe a person does not get certain punishments, at least heavenly punishments. And so therefore, when she was 100, she was still as innocent as she was when she was 20, and not liable to any punishment. Ma bat kaf lo cheta, sharei ina bat anashim bat af bat kuf lo chet, uvat chav kvat zayin liyofi. And when she was 20, she was like a 7-year-old in terms of beauty. Now, what that means? What does it mean to be beautiful like a 7-year-old? So kids are cute. Maybe that's what it's talking about. And when she was 20, she was still she still had that youthful cuteness as when she was 7. Why 7? Why not 5? I don't know. But that's Rashi. And then the last phrase, which seems very redundant, and this is what I spoke about in the video, Shnei Chayei Sara, those are the years of Sarah's life, Kulan Shavim Latova. They were all equally good. In other words, maybe means that she was good in all of those years. There's years where she had a pretty difficult life, actually, but her attitude was good, and that got her through everything. I said a bracha before, by the way. Okay. The Ramban has a problem with this. Now, it's interesting that the Ramban is not going to argue on the Midrash. Now, this is what Rashi's source to this is a Midrash, and Ramban is not going to argue with that. It's a Gemara also. Right, it's a Midrash. And the Ramban is not going to argue with that. But what he is going to argue about is not the content, but where in the Parsha do you see that? So part of his problem is, he says, he quotes the Lashon Rashi, he quotes what we said, and then he says, K'tav b'shnei Chayei Avraham, right? And then he says that when it says, with regard to Avraham's death, which is going to be at the end of chapter, 25, I think, or beginning of 25, we'll look into that a little bit as well. And it says Chayei Yishmael, and the life of Yishmael at the end of the parsha. So, Nemar Kishnei Chayei Avraham B'Shavo Lo Hayu. So the Rashi there, when it comes to Avraham's death, says that Avraham was equal in all these times. But Rashi's source for that comment on Avraham is not from the Midrash. That's Ramban's problem. It says over here, the source is Midrash Rabbah. Beautiful. Okay, good. Okay, so, but over there, it isn't. And it's just Rashi going off on his own, and more or less. He has a source, but let's not get into that now. So Rashi, so Ramban is saying it's not that. Again, let me make this clear. Rashi's language is that it's because of the fact that it says shana, 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 or shanim 3 times, right? And so that breaks it up into 3 parts that all need interpretation. And then, but the problem is that with regard to Abraham's death and Yishmael's death, you also have a similar language. And the Midrash does not bring that up and does not break it up into explaining, oh, it was, he was 100 and he was this and he was that. That doesn't seem relevant there. It's only with regard to Sara that it's 120 and 7, and those numbers somehow indicate something about a certain age and how great she was. So says the Ramban, that's not what the Midrash is talking about when it's talking about how great she was, and that when she was 100, she was as sinless as when she was 20, and when she was 20, she was as beautiful as when she was 7. The Midrash says that. The Ramban is not going to argue on that. What the Ramban is going to argue on is how Rashi fits that into the verse. It's not the shana, shana, shanim issue, says the Ramban. Rather, what is it? Says the Ramban, towards the end, he says, Dashukin, Ela mitur halashon shechazav amar shnei Chayei Sara. That at the very end of the verse, these are the years of Sarah's life. That's when sheklalan v'hashava otan. That's the Torah itself is equating these parts of her life. Below Yidushu Kain Avraham, and that's why the Midrash does not have a drasha, does not go into it with regard to Avraham's life. In other words, it's not strange, says the Ramban, as we see later on in the parsha with Avraham and then Yishmael even, that it says shana, shana, shanim. That's not a problem. What's weird is that these last 3 words, Shnei Chayei Sara, you don't see that Shnei Chayei Avraham, Shnei Chayei Yishmael. You don't have that. So because the Torah doesn't have it there, okay? Because the Torah does not talk about it there, so the Ramban says that's why the Midrash is interpreting Sarah's life the way that it does. All right. Let's go on. Eliezer gets his job of finding a wife for Yitzchak. Excuse me. And he goes back to Avraham's homeland. And there, he's not exactly sure how he's going to do this. Yeah, that's a shalshelet. It's a rare trop, rather rare. So you see one in last week's parsha, one coming up pretty soon when we get to Yosef, God willing. So it says, "Vayomar Hashem Elokei Adoni Avraham Akrei Na Lefnei Hayom V'aseh Chesed Im Adoni Avraham." It says Hashem, the God of Hashem, the God of my master Avraham. Listen now to me today, please. Listen to my prayers. By the way, the Gemara says that this is not a proper way. He did not pray in the proper manner. We should not learn how to pray from Eliezer. And do chesed with my master Avraham. I'm going to stand here by this well of water. And the daughters of the people of the city are coming to get water, to draw water. if there's a nice girl who sees me and sees that I'm thirsty, offers me to drink, ואשתה אמרה, שתה גם גמליך, אשקה אותה, כוחך לעבדך ליצחק, ובא עדה, כי עשית חסד עם אדוני. And if she does this, if she offers me water, that's going to be an indication that and she also offers to water the camels. That's going to show that she's the kind of girl that's good for Yitzchak. And then I'll have fulfilled my task of finding him a wife. All right. Rashi says, Ata hohachta, which she tells him that he should drink. Ruyahi lo sheteh gomelet chasadim. This is going to prove to Eliezer that she is a person of gomelet chasadim, that she's a kind person, and that she's a giving person, and therefore she'll be perfect for Yitzchak. Yeah. All right. So Avraham, and if she's from the house of Avraham, Lashon, Hachta, Beratata. All right. So anyway, I'm gonna get into French right now. All right. So that's going to be the proof to Eliezer that he found the right girl. There's the Beit Halevi, who we haven't had in quite a while. We used to quote him much more regularly. We're gonna have a few of those types of situations today. God willing. All right. All right. So, Yesh Loma, the Af Al Gav, the Hakol Haya B'derech Nichush, V'Simen Hakol Zeh Haya B'derech Chachma K'tzat. Right, so it might seem like he was doing some sort of magic to figure out who the right girl would be. He was looking for miracles and magic and stuff like that. Really, no, it was really just chachma, right? Ki ratza linsot ota b'chol hamidot shela im tovot hinei v'im hem kehasifla. So he wanted to see if she was going to be nice, but also he wanted to know if she was also going to have seichel. She was smart, because a wife in a Jewish home, it shouldn't just be nice. She should be nice and smart. Intelligence is an important midah to look for in a spouse. Rishona im tovahi. So it's, first of all, it's kind that she is offering drink to a man she doesn't know. Otobufrat ki lo haya sham tzluchit v'shav min hakad rak shtei mehakad atzmo. So you don't know a person, you don't offer him your cup. Have him drink from his own cup. It's how do you know? How do you know if he's sick? How do you know if he's what he's carrying? This is before germ theory, and already Chazal knew that you should be careful. Maybe he's not clean. Maybe the cup's not clean. How are you doing this? Mazeget lotitain. So maybe you shouldn't give it. Befrat miyodeh imlo yima'as hamayim rok b'piv v'im yesh lo peh naki. How do you know he has a clean mouth? How do you know how dirty the water is? Mecholat kedoma. How do you know he's not sick? Like we said. V'achar kach, afterwards yira ma taseh b'mayim. Turato shene totaro im tisaim lahabayit eno b'haseichel. It wouldn't be very wise to invite him then into the house. Maybe he does not have a clean mouth. Rok mikadech, and maybe some of his spit's going to get in the cup. So maybe you should be a little more careful about this. Im hi misichlat ein la lisa muter l'mayim beta. And it wouldn't be smart to be taking this pitcher, this cup, back into the house now. And if she would have spilled it out, here, drink from here, and then he sees her take it and then spill it out, right? What's that going to be? It's going to be mevazo. It's going to embarrass him. Ki zivon gadol hu lo shofachat amayim ein shtehu mehem. So, like in front of his face, he's going to throw out the water. That's going to be embarrassing to him. So, what are you supposed to do? What's the wise thing to do at this point? Imkein etza hayitzua. So the right thing to do is shetomar lo gam gamalecha ashke. I will also give your camels to drink. V'yeda bezeh kitovat megaze hamazeg he v'gam balad seichel. That way you see that she is a kind person, but also that she's wise. And in her attempt to be kind and have derech eretz and proper human relations, that didn't stop her from still maintaining his kavod, his necessary human dignity. All right. So again, what Rivka did, she demonstrated that not only is she kind and that she offered him to drink, but why did she offer to give water to the camels afterwards? Because then they would drink from the same cup, and then it would be okay for her to spill out the water from that cup, and it wouldn't embarrass him in case he's sick or something like that. And the lesson for us is this. We often have the idea, the desire to show chesed to somebody, to be kind. And that's good. Don't get me wrong. But showing chesed in the wrong way, showing chesed without any thought into it, without putting any consideration and wisdom into it, is eventually, maybe not today, maybe not this in particular instance, but eventually, if you're not a thinking person, your kindness is going to be turned around, and somehow you're going to show the opposite of chesed to somebody. This is the classic example, of course, we know is Shaul, right? Shaul, the first king of Israel, from whom the kingship was taken. So he showed kindness to Amalek. He was supposed to destroy Amalek, and he left the animals and the king, and for that he was punished. And we see that he had misplaced his kindness, right? Because not only did eventually Amalek then hurt the Jewish people, at least with Haman, and maybe even according to the Gemara, even further on in history. But it's that same midah, that same desire to pick and choose when you're kind, when you're not, that led him to be the opposite of kind to David HaMelech, and to chase him away, and to attempt to kill him, and to kill others on his journey. So it's a very scary thing. What can happen once people take chesed into their own hands and don't use the wisdom, especially the wisdom of the Torah, to sort of temper the chesed into something that's correct. For example, we can think of lots of other examples, different kinds of institutions that are not based on Torah ethics, except for the chesed part, right? If you just have chesed and you don't use wisdom, then you'll have people like we've seen before, people who are who care a lot about animals. Now, don't get me wrong, I care about animals too, and the Torah cares about animals. The Torah says not to hurt them, etc. There's tzar balei chaim, but to focus so much on that to the point where preventing cruelty to animals causes cruelty to people, and that's okay. So that's sort of a misguided, sort of a literally misguided sort of idea of how to show chesed. Yes, we have chesed. Yes, we should be kind. We need to do it in a wise way so that it's not so that it's not misused and turned around on itself. An important lesson from the parsha. All right. All right. So Eliezer, we have more details of this in other parsha classes. You're invited to look at the YouTube channel and the playlist for Chayei Sara for that. Another free plug. So Bereshit 24:50. So it's towards the end of this very long chapter. It details the whole travel of Eliezer, the whole job that he had, and even his retelling of the story. It takes quite a bit of space. But of course, lots of lessons to learn from all that, and we've talked about some of those lessons in previous classes, which is what I'm referencing here. But towards the end of his story, in fact, it says V'yan Lavan and Betuel. So Lavan and Betuel, Lavan being Rivka's brother, and Betuel being her father, they were impressed by the story of the Amru me Hashem Yatsa Hadavar. This came from God. Lo nuchal daber alecha ra otov, and we cannot say anything good or bad about it. In other words, what you said is obviously true. She's obviously meant to be. She should be Yitzchak's wife. Good, everything's great. And then the next morning, at least Lavan and his mother seem to try to get Eliezer to. Firstly, they ask Rivka. They say that Rivka is going to come with him, and then Eliezer says, "Great." And the next morning he's about to leave. He's like, "Okay, where's the girl?" Like, we're going to ask. We're not really sure if she should go. It's a little too early, etc. So, the Ktav Sofer, the son of one of the sons of the Chatam Sofer, writes, V'yan Lavan Betuel v'Amru me Hashem Yatsa Hadavar T'mua. So it's a wonder. Ech ha'aminu divrei Eliezer she'asa simen v'chein haya. How is it that they believed Eliezer and all of this, that this happened the way it should? V'gam belav hachi kasha ha'aminu ki Hashem zaveg zivugim u'me'Hashem Yatsa Hadavar. Hashem makes zvugim. Hashem makes shidduchim, and this came from Hashem. Yeah. But later on, here they seem very firm. Oh, yeah, Baruch Hashem, it came from Hashem. Everything's good. Of course, you should go. Then later on, 5 verses later, Pasuk Nun Hey, 55, Pirish Rashi says, Betuel Rotza La'akev, that Betuel wanted to change his mind. Eich anu shnehem hine Rivka lefanecha. And it says here's Rivka, here they say Rivka's before you. Eich lo shalu piha kemo she'amru achar kach shala et piha. So he didn't ask for Rivka's opinion. Then the next morning they did ask, what does Rivka think about this? Nearly, one of his explanations, and he has several, by the way. Lavan and Betuel lo ratzu latet bitam Yitzchak. Seems to me, he says, Betuel did not want to give his daughter, Lavan did not want to give his sister to Eliezer. Hiderech Rashayim is the way of evil people. Shelo l'davik b'tzadikim. They don't want to be attached to the righteous. They want to live, as far away from the righteous as possible. And then you want them to become in-laws with Avraham? No way. Ela shehakiru v'yadua ki Rivka tachpotz leilech v'achar kach v'yidahu. Pirush Rashi lekaman she'amar af shelo tirtzu alecha imo. So in other words, they were sort of backpedaling, because they didn't really want her to go to begin with. But what they said then was just to appease Eliezer. Oh, this is from Hashem. This is from Hashem. Don't worry, it's from Hashem. And guess what? Her saying no is also from Hashem. Yeah? We'll use your own logic against you. First, immediately they said, yes, of course, without any kind of stipulations. Udrisha al mahud chatan, and without investigating the chatan or anything, right? Everything's fine. Hine derech chitun shelo lomar miyad hein ki yechushu avot hakala o hachatan sheyesh dvarim bego. Sheyesh ezu chisaron mekaven sherotzim miyad ve'ein chokrim heitiv. So the immediate answer is going to be yes, mollify him, make him feel like he's getting what he wants, and then then you can change your mind back to what you really wanted, which is for her not to marry, Yitzchak. Okay. Alkain, Shidum benafsham ki bitam balat mum l'chein oni miyad hein. So it's as if, she says, this is as if this type of situation where that there's some sort of mum, there's some sort of deficiency in either the chatan or the kala, and so you say, so you in your head, obviously you don't want this person to marry into your family, but you say yes, v'zeh haya. So this is again what Rishayim do. Don't try this at home. Lavan and Betuel she'amru hein b'li chakira drisha. This is like a trick that they used to say yes without any kind of stipulation. Kadeshi amar Eliezer al libo halo davar. This is so that in his head, Eliezer is going to think that's a done deal. Alkain bitam balat mum o cholaniti. But but it's going to be a trick. What's the trick? The trick is, who says, yeah, go ahead, take this. You go to a salesman, right? You go to a car dealership, and you say, I've got $5,000. What car can you sell me? And the first car the salesman is going to show to you, if he's a wicked salesman, wicked in the bad sense, he's going to say, oh, look at this 1985 Pinto. It's going to be perfect for you for your $5,000. It'll get you from point A to point B in less than 60 seconds, especially if point A to point B is like a millimeter away. you're gonna right. So in other words, how will you feel if about the car? And he's really selling it up for sure. This is the car for you. You're really going to like it. You're going to be a little suspicious, right? So that's what they wanted. They wanted for Eliezer in his head to say, wait a minute, they're selling Rivka kind of cheap here. I just told them a story, and they're like, yeah, take her, go ahead. Oh yeah, no problem. So so again, so it's an insight into psychology here. They're trying to use reverse psychology by saying Rivka is perfect for you. Go ahead and take her. So it would seem like to Eliezer that there's obviously something wrong with the girl. Al yidei shabarer etzlam shetirtza haya mi shehaya, al yidei zeh haya nasog achor. Aval Eliezer, so they tried to do this trick. But Eliezer, sheyada benavsho shemina shemayim, he knew in his heart that this came from Shemayim. So Eliezer is not, Eliezer is not just a regular customer in a car dealership. Eliezer has had miracles occurring to him that has led him directly to this spot at exactly this day, exactly this family, exactly as Avraham had asked for. Who v'yakad v'yishtachava? He gets down on the floor and bows down to God. He's not concerned with all this. None of this matters. None of this trickery. All of this is nonsense to him. And when they saw that he wasn't concerned about all this, how they're selling her up, right, to let her go, that's when they said, "Oh, let's ask the girl." That's when they slow down the process. In other words, they tried to make it seem like she was too good, and in an attempt to do reverse psychology to get Eliezer to not be interested in taking Rivka. But what does he do? He's not interested in all this. He's not. He doesn't care if Hashem is pointing with neon arrows at this Pinto. Then this Pinto is the car to buy. Right? I wouldn't think Hashem would do such a thing. But but here we go. This girl has been fulfilling all of the aspects of this miraculous test. So for sure he's confident that Hashem has led him to this girl. Now the next question is, and this is a question for all of us really, is that when all of Hashem's arrows are pointing to a particular decision, a particular girl, a particular move, a particular whatever it is, whatever our question is, and Hashem seems to be showing us directly this is the thing. So does that mean necessarily that there's no challenges? Or does that mean that that's the challenge? Is that just because it's does Hashem really want things to come so easily when we're dealing with such issues? So that's a bigger question, and that deserves sort of an individual answer in individual cases. Sometimes all of life is pointing to a particular direction, and then that's not the right. Actually, that's not the right decision that Hashem had. I'm just thinking right now as an example. True story of the Chafetz Chaim towards the end of his life, and I mean towards the end of his life, right? 5 years before he passed, he tried very much to move to Eretz Yisrael. All of his life, he'd been confident in the coming of Mashiach, so confident that he had his bags packed, right? And he learned and taught and wrote a book about the laws of Kohanim in the Beit HaMikdash, because he was planning to be a Kohen in the Beit HaMikdash. You have to understand this to understand the story, right? And he said he was leaving Rodin, and the people of Rodin said, no, you're not. You can't leave. How can you leave us alone without a? How can you leave a body without a head? How are we going to function without the Chafetz Chaim in Rodin? So the Chafetz Chaim said, no, you're okay. You have Rav Elchanan Wasserman will take my place. That sort of mollified them, and he made all kinds of efforts. He tried to get a passport. He put money together to make the move, and eventually things didn't work out. So what does that mean? when all of the arrows in your life all point to a certain direction, and you strive to do it, and you're doing it for the right reasons and everything else, and then it doesn't work out. The Chofetz Chaim passed away in Radin, 1933, right? 90 years ago, and it's sad, and it requires a study for each and every case as individual. For whatever reason, Hashem decided that it wasn't time for the Chofetz Chaim to come to Eretz Yisrael. He'll come to Eretz Yisrael when, God willing, soon when Mashiach comes. Let's we have a few other points I wanted to bring up. Let's get to the meeting of, or almost the meeting of Yitzchak and Rivka. So when Rivka is traveling with Eliezer back home, we see that Yitzchak is in the field. Okay. Yitzchak went to speak in the field. The Gemara tells us that this means he was davening. Lifnot Erev, it was close to Erev. It was right before evening, otherwise known as mincha. Gemara says that he established the prayer of mincha, the praying of mincha. V'yisa einav, he picked up his eyes, v'yar, and he saw hine gemalim boim, and the camels were coming. In other words, camels carrying his future wife were coming. Says the Kli Yakar. Razal, according to the rabbis, in Brachot 26b, Lamdu Mikash Yitzchak Tiket Filat Mincha, as I said, he established the prayer of Mincha. Vahu Lifnot Erev, which is supposed to be before the evening. Samoach La Erev, close to the evening. Arev Shemesh, close to the sunset. Mikan Samach Lama Shamru Chazal, and this is why the rabbis say, also in Gemara Brachot 6b. The person should always be careful with the praying of mincha. Mincha is a very important prayer. And the Gemara says, Shekain Eliyahu lo nana el ki impet filat mincha. Eliyahu was answered with his famous test at Har Carmel at mincha time, which, by the way, we mentioned at the end of Ne'ilah and Yom Kippur, right? Avraham v'Yaakov tiknu gam tefillah shachrit v'arvit. Avraham established shachrit. Yaakov established arvit, says the Gemara. Also, that Gemara earlier. Mikol makom lo metzinu shenanu miyad v'takev. But they were not answered immediately. As opposed to mincha, aval b'tfilat mincha, matinish Yitzchak na nemiyad. Yitzchak was answered immediately. What does that mean? He was out in the field davening. He looks up. He finishes davening. He looks up, and here comes the answer to his prayers. What was he davening for? Why was he davening? He was davening for his shidduch, and his shidduch comes immediately after he's done davening. That's how powerful mincha is. Mincha is answered immediately. Ki al zod yipalel kol chasid le'ed mitzavezu isha. A man is supposed to daven for the right wife, and here he is davening for a wife, and it's mincha time, and mincha he gets answered immediately. Not mentioned here, but the Chida writes elsewhere also that mincha is a time of din, the courts, both the earthly court and the heavenly court, deal with their capital crimes at mincha time. So it's very important to have the right kavanah at mincha. It's not like, let's just get through it. It's a short thing, Ashrei Shemona Esrei, Tachanun, and Aleinu. That's it. You're supposed to take your time and think about what you want. The Kedushat Levi also writes, by the way, one of the reasons why mincha is so powerful is because if you think about it, shacharit is okay. You have to get up in the morning, okay, but most people did anyway. Right? They woke up pretty early in the morning at sunrise. right? And they daven, and then they went to work. So it's not much of a sacrifice. You're not really losing much. Mariv is already nighttime. What else are you going to be doing? There's not much else to do. Mincha requires a sacrifice. You have to cut up your day in a way to be able to not forget mincha, especially now, especially with the time change this week. It's very common that people will say, "Oh my gosh, I forgot mincha," right? They lose track of time. They didn't set it up quite right, or whatever, and it's important to remember that mincha is an important prayer, and it's very worthwhile to do our best to concentrate at mincha, especially not only to pray mincha, but to concentrate and to include our personal prayers at mincha time, because mincha is the time that, as the Gemara says, that's the time when people are answered almost immediately. Yitzchak was answered immediately for his prayers, and it's also worthwhile to know that what he was praying for was for a good shidduch. And as many gedolim and many of our sages of the past have pointed out, you could do all the efforts you want in the world, all the all the matchmaking and everything else, and segulas and everything, whatever. Do whatever you want to find the shidduch, but the most important, most powerful tool to use in finding the right shidduch is tefillah, prayer. And especially of Chaim Kanievsky wrote about this quite often. I think the Art Scroll recently published a book or something with his advice on finding a shidduch, and praying is on the top of the list. Okay. So as we mentioned before, the end of the parsha deals with the deaths of some great people, some not so great people, whatever. However great they were, they're definitely important people. One of the people that's mentioned is certainly Avraham, great person, right? Avraham, and these are the years of Avraham's life. Asher Chai Me'et Shana, Ma'at Shana, he lived 100 years, Shivim Shana, and 70 years, Chamesh Shanim, and 5 years. So 175. And again, as we pointed out from before from the Ramban, Rashi here says a few things about why it's 100 and why it's 70 and why it's 5. Yeah, maybe we'll leave that for another time, exactly what Rashi says, but that's how long he lived. And you see, again, you don't have those last 3 words, Shnei Chayei Avraham. But the next verse tells us, verse 8, so this is chapter 25, verse 7 and 8, it says, V'yigva v'yamat Avraham b'seva tova, and Avraham died in old age, in the good old age, Zakin, old, v'savea, and satisfied, v'yasef el amav, and he was v'yasef, and he was gathered with the rest of his nation. And this is, by the way, another indication of the idea that there is a world to come, right? And I think we've spoken about that in previous years. This is one of the hints to Olam Haba. We know that Olam Haba is not mentioned in the Torah. One of the reasons being that Hashem and the rabbis and all of our sages, nobody wants us to live our life for death, right? We don't want to focus on death. We want to focus on life, as we said in the beginning of the class. That's why all of these deaths in this week's parsha are called Chayei Sara, the life of Sara. I think that's a drasha from the last Lubavitcher Rebbe. Either way, so the Malbim, who again is somebody we haven't heard from in quite a while, my apologies. He has a lot to say on the entire Torah, and all of Tanakh, in fact. Let's be honest. So he says a very beautiful thing here. It says on the words that he lived, right? So he one second. Asher Chai. Eli Meshinei Chayei Avraham Asher Chai. That he lived. Those two words. These are the years of Abraham's life that he lived. What do you mean that he lived? Of course that he lived. This is another difference in the language between Avraham and Sara, by the way. So he lived these lives. He lived these years. So says the Malbim, wrote Salomar, what this means to say is, Ki Hashanim she'ein ovdim et Hashem yitbarach, the years that you're not serving Hashem, enam nikrim shanot chayim, they're not called years of life. Hivam lo chai. That's not life. Chai adam rak chai habehema. Those are not the years of the life of a man. Those are the years of life of an animal. All animals live, but serving Hashem, that's only possible for somebody with a neshama, with a soul. It's only possible for a person. And Avraham served Hashem for all 175 years. Now, you're going to say, whoa. I know the Midrash, and I know that Avraham discovered Hashem, okay, in a cave when he saw the sun and the moon, or when he was young and he saw that the idols in his father's shop weren't capable of anything, or when he was thrown into a fiery furnace and he survived. That's when he was, that's not when he was a baby. How are you telling me that he served Hashem when he was 3 years old, when he was 5 years old? So it says, right? Hamiti hidua she'achar shehikir et boro v'shev b'tshuva tiken gam hayamim harishonim ashenucha limor shechai b'chol yimei shnei chayav. Once he was hikiru, once he recognized that there is a God, what did he do? V'shav b'tshuva. He did teshuva. He cried and he said, I regret and I promise never to do that again. And he did all of the steps of teshuva. And what does that do? That's tikein gam hayamim harishonim. That fixed those first years, so that even if he was 15, and so he lived 160 years of a good life, and the first 15 years of his life were wasted on avodah zarah and whatever else, because he did teshuva, he lived 175 good years, because those 15 years were fixed. He fixed them up with his teshuva. And that's not just true for Avraham. That's true for everybody. We all have the ability to do teshuva, and it's not just for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur to discuss this. We see the Malbim is discussing it here, and it's true for all of us. We have the ability, nay, we have the responsibility to do teshuva at any point in our life, and that fixes previous behaviors. It fixes previous years. So, I was a Baal Tshuva in real life here. Let's be real here for a second. I was a Baal Tshuva for now 31 years, right? Since I was 17 or so. Made mistakes since then. I made mistakes before that. Those first 17 years of my life, if I did tshuva properly, they're also fixed up. And I can be a Baal Tshuva for all 48 years of my life. My whole life could be a good life if I did tshuva properly and live a whole life. My whole life can be a complete life if it's a life of teshuva. If God willing, it is. All right, but that's not for me or you to know. that's up to Hashem to decide. And so and that's true for and it doesn't have to be ideally it's the whole life, but we often have in our lives that we're not sure, how about this aspect of my life? How about that? If you did teshuva for any of your behaviors of the past, then it's a complete and whole and awesome, amazing life, and that leads us into to the world to come. But again, that's not what we're focused on. We're focused on living a life of good, a life of giving, a life of using our chachma and our wisdom, as we saw from Rivka and as we saw from Eliezer. And again, I wanted to point out before we break that this class was sponsored in memory of Esther Gittel Bat Yitzchak, and the Shema should have an Aliyah, and the schut of learning Torah should be a merit for her and a merit for us, and should taka be a tikkun, a fixing of whatever mistakes we've made, so that we are able to live this complete life that Avraham lived, and is possible for all of us to live. Again, thank you for listening. I'm going to stop the feed to Facebook. If you have any questions, now would be a good time to ask. And if you don't, if you're not here live, you can definitely ask on the YouTube chat.